A silent language once conveyed entire family histories with a single symbol. This was the power of heraldry, a complex code of medieval emblems now largely misunderstood. By the end of this journey, you will be able to look at any noble crest and read its hidden stories of ambition and lineage. We will uncover why a lion in a specific posture was a declaration of war, and what a mythical beast really said about a family's ambitions. What forgotten story do you think is waiting to be discovered on an ancient shield? Amidst the chaos of clashing steel, a knight's shield became his face. This was the brutal, practical origin of heraldry. In the early 12th century, as armor evolved to encase a knight completely in polished steel, the battlefield turned into a sea of anonymous, mirror-like figures. How could a lord be distinguished from a common soldier or an ally from a foe in the choking dust and violent confusion of a charge? The solution was as simple as it was brilliant. Knights began painting unique, bold, and colorful designs onto their long, kite-shaped shields. These were not subtle artworks. They were high-contrast emblems meant to be recognized in an instant from across a muddy field. A lord could now spot his key vassals, rally them to his position, and direct the flow of the battle. This identity extended to the cloth surcoat worn over the armor, which displayed the same pattern, ensuring the knight could be identified even if his shield was lost. What began as a military necessity, a matter of life and death, quickly transformed into something far more profound. The symbol on the shield became synonymous with the man who carried it. It was his calling card, his reputation, and soon his legacy. This visual language, born from the desperate need for clarity in combat, would become the very bedrock of medieval identity, setting down roots that would grow for centuries to come. But that sea of unique symbols on the battlefield created a new problem. If every knight had his own emblem, how could anyone possibly keep them all straight? This is where a fascinating new profession emerged, one that would become the absolute authority on this visual language. These were the heralds. Think of them not as simple announcers, but as the living, breathing archives of medieval nobility. A herald's most critical skill was instant recognition. At a grand tournament surrounded by hundreds of armored knights, a herald had to be able to identify every single participant just by glancing at the shield he carried. This required a prodigious memory, a mental catalogue of thousands of intricate designs, colors, and patterns. Their expertise became so indispensable that they were given the formal power to grant, record, and regulate these symbols. They made sure no two families used the same coat of arms, a vital rule that prevented deadly cases of mistaken identity on the battlefield and social confusion off it. Their meticulous records, beautiful manuscripts called armorials or rolls of arms, are like frozen snapshots of medieval society. These documents preserve for us the identities and alliances of countless families, a testament to the herald's role as the official guardian of this code. It was their rigorous work that transformed random shield paintings into a structured, rule-bound system, a true language of symbols whose grammar we are only just beginning to relearn. To truly read this silent language, you must first learn to see the shield not as a single image, but as a structured document. Every coat of arms begins with its foundation, a canvas known as the field. This is the background, the very ground upon which the story is built. But this ground is rarely left as a simple, unbroken color. More often than not, it is divided by precise lines that carve it into distinct sections. Each of these divisions has a name and a potential meaning. A single vertical line splitting the shield in two is called a division per pale. A horizontal line creating an upper and lower section is a division per fess. And one of the most famous patterns, a grid that divides the field into 4 quarters, is known as quarterly. These were not just artistic choices, they were a form of public record. Imagine a powerful lord marries the heiress of a neighboring territory. How does he visually announce this new, powerful alliance? He might combine their 2 family emblems, placing his own on one side of a pale division and his wife's on the other. Or a king granting a new title might allow a noble to add a section of the royal arms to his own shield, creating a quarterly pattern that proclaims his favor and expanded dominion. The very architecture of the shield, therefore, is the first and most crucial chapter of the story. It is a map of alliances, a diagram of inherited lands, and a permanent record of a family's most pivotal moments, all before a single lion, eagle, or fleur-de-lis is ever placed upon it. Once the field was divided, it was time to fill it with color, a choice far more significant than simple decoration. The colors of heraldry, known as tinctures, were a strict and meaningful code. Think of them as the adjectives in this visual language, each one imbued with a specific moral weight and aspirational value. The system is built on 2 fundamental types, metals and colors. The metals are the light backgrounds, primarily ore, meaning gold, which symbolized generosity and an elevation of the mind, and argent for silver or white, representing peace and sincerity. Then came the rich, darker colors. A bold gules or red was the mark of a warrior, denoting military strength and magnanimity. A deep azure, blue, spoke of truth and unwavering loyalty. A somber sable, black, could signify grief or, more positively, constancy in the face of adversity. And a vibrant vert, green, was the color of hope, joy, and loyalty in love. This limited, high-contrast palette was brilliant in its simplicity, ensuring the designs remained starkly visible across a jousting field. But its true power lay in the statement it made. Choosing a tincture was a public declaration of character. A knight who draped his shield in red was shouting his martial prowess, while one who chose blue was pledging his fidelity. With this vivid palette defined, the canvas was finally ready for its central characters, the symbols that would tell a family's most unique and personal story. With a field divided and colored, these shields needed their heroes. The canvas was ready for its most expressive characters, a menagerie of beasts both real and imagined that transformed a simple design into a declaration of identity. The undisputed king of this heraldic world was the lion, a symbol of raw courage, nobility, and royal authority. But the lion was never just a lion. Its posture told a story all its own. A lion rampant, reared up on one leg with claws outstretched, was a clear signal of ferocity and a readiness for battle. It was the emblem of a warrior. In contrast, a lion passant, depicted walking calmly with one forepaw raised, projected an air of serene, sovereign dignity. This was the mark of a ruler in firm control, a declaration of peaceful authority rather than overt aggression. The choice was intentional and spoke volumes about how a knight or lord wished to be perceived by both his allies and his enemies. The eagle soared as another potent symbol, representing imperial authority, leadership, and a far-sighted vision. It was a creature that belonged to emperors and kings who claimed dominion over vast territories. But heraldry truly unlocked its creative potential when it began to blend the animal kingdom. Consider the griffin, a majestic hybrid with the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle. This was not a random monster from a fable. It was a deliberate fusion of the eagle's authority and the lion's courage, creating a symbol of ultimate vigilance and power. The families who chose the griffin were making an unmistakable statement about their own combined virtues. Even the more common animals of the forest and field carried profound meaning. A bear might denote not just sheer strength, but also a protective nature and a reputation for cunning. A boar was almost universally an emblem of fierce, relentless bravery in combat, an animal that would never back down. Every creature, from the humblest hare to the most fantastical dragon, was a carefully selected emblem. They were not chosen for their aesthetic appeal alone, but as a direct reflection of the virtues a family claimed to embody and the legacy it sought to project to the world. This symbolic bestiary gives us a direct and unfiltered window into the medieval soul, revealing the raw, aspirational values of courage, leadership, and strength that defined their world. While the beasts of heraldry roar with personality, the true foundation of this silent language often lies in its most unassuming elements. Beyond the lions and eagles, the shield is often structured by what heralds call ordinary charges, simple geometric shapes that are anything but ordinary in their meaning. These bands and bars are the architectural backbone of the entire system. Picture a bold horizontal stripe running directly across the middle of the shield. This is the fess, a band that represented a military belt or a girdle of honor. Its presence spoke of a readiness for duty and a central, unifying principle for the family. Then there is the pale, a powerful vertical band that cuts the shield in two. This shape was a symbol of strength and fortitude, like a mighty pillar holding up the family's reputation. Perhaps one of the most telling is the bend, a diagonal stripe running from the top left to the bottom right. This was often the mark of a cadet branch, a younger son establishing his own legacy, or it could denote a specific martial honor earned on the field of battle. Each of these simple lines carried the weight of history and personal achievement. Another profoundly symbolic shape is the chevron, a V-shaped design resembling a roof rafter or a military insignia. This was not a random choice. It symbolized protection and faithful service, drawing a direct analogy to the wooden beams that support a great hall, suggesting the family itself was a pillar of support for their community or lord. And then there is the cross, a symbol that could take dozens of distinct forms, from the simple Greek cross to the elaborate cross patei. While each variation held a subtle meaning, they all pointed universally to a deep Christian faith and, very often, a proud crusading heritage in the family's past. These geometric elements are the quiet workhorses of heraldry. They may lack the drama of a rampant griffin, but they often hold the most ancient and respected meanings, forming the essential, structured grammar upon which the entire story of a coat of arms is built. Beyond the bold geometry and the roaring beasts, heraldry found a more delicate poetry in the world of nature. Flowers, plants, and the very lights of the sky were woven into this silent language, each one a subtle key to a family's values. The most famous of these is the fleur de lis, that elegant, stylized lily. While it became the ultimate emblem of French royalty, its meaning ran far deeper, symbolizing purity, divine light, and the three persons of the Holy Trinity. This was not just a pretty decoration, it was a profound statement of faith and sanctity. Then there is the rose, a symbol of beauty that could also end a war. The Tudor rose, artfully blending the red rose of Lancaster with the white rose of York, did not merely mark a new royal house. It announced the final, blessed peace after generations of civil war, a living emblem of unity grown from a field of conflict. Even the simplest plants carried immense weight. A humble trefoil, a three-leaf clover, was a quiet nod to the Trinity, a small sign of deep piety. An oak tree or a cluster of its leaves spoke not of fleeting strength, but of ancient, unshakable stability and a lineage that stretched back into the mists of time. And heraldry did not stop at the treetops. It reached for the heavens themselves. A radiant sun symbolized ultimate glory and authority, the source of all light. A crescent moon denoted serenity and a quieter, more mysterious power. Stars were seen as divine sparks, representing the noble quality of the bearer and connecting their earthly honor to the celestial order above. When a family placed a star or a sun upon their shield, they were anchoring their identity to the cosmos, declaring that their virtues were as eternal and ordered as the heavens. This entire vocabulary of floral and celestial symbols reveals a medieval world where human identity was not separate from creation, but an intimate part of its grand divine tapestry. A lion rearing on its hind legs roars a very different message than one standing calmly with all four paws on the ground. This is the subtle power of attitude, the precise language of posture that turns a simple symbol into a complex sentence. In heraldry, the creature's position is everything. The most famous of these is the lion rampant, a beast fully reared up with claws bared and tail lashing. This was not a generic symbol of courage. It was a direct, unambiguous declaration of a warrior's spirit, a family's readiness for a fight. It screamed aggression and untamed power. Now picture that same lion but standing firmly on all 4 feet, its body calm and collected. This is a lion statant, a posture that conveys a watchful, dignified presence. It speaks of strength held in reserve, of authority that does not need to constantly prove itself. The difference between these two lions is the difference between a battle cry and a solemn vow. This vocabulary extended to every creature. An eagle with its wings fully spread wide, a posture known as displayed, was a powerful emblem of protection and sovereign power, as if the bird were shielding the entire family beneath its wings. An animal lying down but with its head alert and raised was described as couchant, a symbol of watchful rest, like a loyal guardian at the gate. And the rare animal depicted as dormant, fast asleep, might have been a deeply personal symbol, perhaps hinting at a period of peace or a private family story lost to time. Even inanimate objects spoke through their orientation. A sword pointing upward toward the heavens was a weapon ready for defense and righteous cause. That same sword pointing downward could signal a state of peace or the end of a conflict. This nuanced language of posture granted families an incredible tool for personalization. Within the strict rules of the system, they could fine-tune their public message with the precision of a poet choosing just the right word. To understand these subtle shifts in stance is to hear the quiet inflections in a family's story, the difference between a shout and a whisper across the centuries. This silent language of symbols was never meant to be static. As noble houses intermarried and powerful alliances were forged, their emblems had to evolve, giving rise to the sophisticated art of marshalling. This practice transformed a simple coat of arms into a dynamic family tree, charting political marriages and inherited claims for all to see. The most straightforward method was a technique called impalement. The shield was split by a single, clean vertical line. On the dexter side, the right from the knight's own perspective, and therefore the position of greatest honor, remained his own family arms. On the sinister side, the left, he would proudly display the paternal arms of his wife. This was far more than a romantic gesture. It was a public legal document in visual form, proclaiming a binding union between two powerful families and the merging of their resources and influence. But what happened when a marriage brought not just an alliance, but a claim to an entire territory or a sprawling inheritance from a mother who was a noble heiress? For these more complex situations, a different method emerged: quartering. The shield was divided into 4, or sometimes many more, sections like a checkerboard. A knight might display his own father's arms in the 1st and 4th quarters, and his mother's paternal arms in the 2nd and 3rd. This created a balanced, repeating pattern that permanently enshrined his dual lineage. It announced to the world that he was the rightful heir to 2 great names and all the lands and titles that came with them. In the most ambitious cases, you might see a small, separate shield placed right in the very center of the main coat of arms. This is known as an escutcheon of pretense. This small shield did not represent an inheritance already acquired, but a bold claim. A man might use it to display the arms of a territory he believed was rightfully his, perhaps through a distant ancestor or a disputed will. It was a heraldic argument, a statement of intent placed at the heart of his identity. Through these intricate methods of combination, heraldry proved itself a living, breathing document. A noble's shield was not a fixed portrait, but a constantly updated chronicle of his family's rising fortunes, a story of ambition and legacy told one marriage, one inheritance, and one small, central shield at a time. Yet even the most straightforward symbol could hold a meaning completely inverted from its modern appearance. Take the martlet, a small, swift bird often shown in profile. To a contemporary eye, it might look maimed or incomplete, for it is almost always depicted without feet. But this was not a depiction of injury. The martlet was the heraldic emblem of the fourth son in a family. Its lack of feet was the entire point of its symbolism. It signified that this younger son, unlike his elder brothers, would not inherit the family estate or ancestral lands. He had no permanent footing, no place to land and rest. The martlet was a constant reminder that he was destined to make his own way in the world, to build his own fortune through the church, the military, or commerce. It was a symbol not of disability, but of compelled ambition. Similarly, a delicate flower known as the cinquefoil, with its 5 perfectly shaped petals, was far more than a floral decoration. In the language of the shield, it was a direct emblem of hope and joy, its balanced form representing perfect faith and a bright future. Perhaps one of the most easily misunderstood symbols is the water bauget. It looks like 2 simple, stylized leather bags suspended from a wooden yoke. To our modern sensibilities, it might seem to reference a menial task, but in its true context, it was a powerful badge of honor. The water bauget specifically denoted a man who had served in the Crusades, tasked with the vital duty of carrying fresh water to the troops in arid and hostile lands. This was not a symbol of low status. It was a humble yet proud declaration of pilgrimage, survival, and faithful service in the holiest of wars. Each of these symbols, when stripped of its original context, becomes a silent, puzzling image. But when we restore that lost framework, the simple bird, the flower, and the water bags are transformed. They become poignant, deeply personal narratives about birth order, divine hope, and the honor found in sacred duty. They speak not of abstract ideals, but of the real, human conditions of younger sons with no inheritance, of families clinging to hope, and of soldiers who endured the brutal journey to a distant land. To see these emblems through medieval eyes is to uncover a hidden layer of social meaning, where every charge on the shield was a chapter from a life lived. Soaring above the shield and helmet, the crest was the ultimate personal signature. We often use the term coat of arms to describe the entire emblem, but the crest is its own distinct and crowning element. This 3-dimensional figure, perched atop the knight's helmet, began its life not as a symbol, but as a tool for survival in the tournament. In the deafening roar of the jousting lists, with dozens of identically armored competitors, a knight needed to be instantly identifiable to the crowds and the judges. His solution was to mount a lightweight sculpture of boiled leather, wood, or even molded parchment onto his helmet. These crests were designed for maximum visibility, often featuring tall, sweeping plumes, a pair of wings, or a fierce animal, all crafted to catch the eye from across the field. But as tournaments faded and heraldry became more about lineage than combat, the crest underwent a profound transformation. it shed its practical purpose and became a purely symbolic and hereditary emblem. This elevated position allowed it to tell a more intimate story than the shield below. While the shield recounted the broad history of the entire family, the crest could celebrate a singular, personal achievement or embody the family's most cherished motto. A noble house whose shield displayed a full lion might choose a crest showing only the lion's head, bursting forth from a ducal coronet. This was not a mere repetition, it was an intensification, a declaration of leadership and authority drawn from their lineage. Another knight might use his crest to introduce a completely new symbol, like a single, upright sword, representing a vow he had taken, or a ship commemorating a famous voyage. The crest was the final, aspirational flourish, the part of the heraldic achievement that reached highest, both literally and metaphorically, holding the most personal dreams of the individual who bore it. Yet the ultimate expression of heraldic status often lies not in the shield itself, but in the magnificent frame that surrounds it. For the highest ranks of nobility, the coat of arms was elevated into a full heraldic achievement, a grand tableau of identity. Look closely at the most elaborate emblems, and you will see the central shield being physically held up by a pair of figures known as supporters. These are not mere decorations. They are a mark of extraordinary honor typically granted by a monarch for exceptional service. A lion and a unicorn flanking a shield, for instance, are not just a random pairing. They are a declaration of royal favor and immense authority. Each supporter was carefully chosen for its symbolism, often reflecting the family's core attributes, the native beasts of their lands, or their powerful political alliances. The entire assembly rests upon a final element called the compartment. This is the foundation, often depicted as a grassy mound, a patch of rocky earth, or even a swirling sea for a great naval family. The compartment grounds the achievement in the reality of the bearer's domain. It might be strewn with the family's symbolic plants, like the Scottish thistle or the English Tudor rose, rooting their abstract honor in the very soil they ruled. Together, the shield, the crest, the helmet, the flowing mantling, the majestic supporters, and the solid compartment form a complete story. This heraldic achievement was the ultimate visual statement, a masterpiece of social hierarchy that placed a family's entire world, from their personal virtues to their territorial power, into a single, unforgettable image. Flowing from the helmet, often enveloping the sides of the shield, is a stylized cloth known as the mantling. Today, we see it rendered as elegant, swirling scrollwork of silver and gold, a purely decorative frame for the coat of arms. But this beautiful flourish holds a secret, a memory of violence etched into its very form. Its origin is not in the artist's studio, but in the choking dust and brutal chaos of the battlefield. A knight's helmet in the crusading sun would become a miniature oven, so a practical cloth mantle was fixed to the back to shield the metal from the heat. Yet in the press of combat, this simple piece of fabric told a story no symbol could. It was slashed by swords, torn by axes, and shredded by spear points. The stylized, tattered edges we see in heraldic art are not random artistic curls. They are a direct, frozen representation of that battle damage. Each cut and rent in the cloth was a blow that did not find its mark on the knight's flesh. This was not a symbol of intended valor, but a record of proven survival. It was a public, undeniable testament that the bearer had stood in the line of battle and lived to tell the tale. The colors chosen for this tattered cloth were almost always the primary metal and color from the shield itself, visually weaving this hard-won experience back into the family's core identity. So the next time you see that flowing, ornate mantling, look past its beauty, see it for what it truly is, a ghostly echo of a near miss, a silent scar on a family's legacy, and a stark reminder that this entire language of symbols was first written not with ink but with steel. While the mantling whispered of past battles, the final element of the heraldic achievement spoke with a clear, confident voice. Beneath the compartment, unfurled on an elegant scroll, lay the family motto. This was the verbal soul of the arms, a short and potent phrase that encapsulated an entire lineage's philosophy. Written most often in Latin or the local vernacular, the motto gave direct insight into the ambitions and values that the symbols above could only hint at. Unlike the hereditary coat of arms, which was passed down unchanged, the motto was a living part of the legacy. A new generation could adopt a new phrase to reflect their own era or a pivotal event, making it the most personal and adaptable element of their identity. Consider the staggering ambition encoded in the Habsburg motto, a EIOU. This was not a random string of vowels, but a powerful acronym for the Latin phrase Austria est Imperia Orbi Universo. In English, this declares it is Austria's destiny to rule the whole world. Here was a verbal declaration of imperial destiny, a bold mission statement to match their vast territorial holdings. In stark contrast, the Scottish Douglas family chose a motto of fierce loyalty and forward momentum, jamais arrière. This French phrase translates simply to never behind. It was a vow to their allies and a warning to their enemies, promising that a Douglas would always be in the thick of the fight, leading the charge. This textual key unlocks the silent symbols. A shield bearing a lion might speak of general courage, but if the motto beneath it reads loyal to the end, we understand that this family's bravery is rooted in an unbreakable fidelity. The motto breathes life into the visual code, allowing us to hear the echoes of personal conviction and dynastic pride that shaped the course of history. But the power of this symbolic language was far too potent to remain confined to the battlefield or the tournament list. Soon, the very towns and cities of Europe began to speak in this new visual tongue. Craft guilds, merchant confederations, and growing municipalities all saw the value in a unique emblem that could represent their collective identity and hard-won privileges. These civic coats of arms functioned as a corporate seal, a statement of communal pride and economic purpose. A town built on the wool trade might proudly display a golden fleece. A city whose wealth flowed from its river port would often feature a sailing ship on its shield. The Brewers' Guild could adopt a trio of barrels, while the blacksmiths might choose a massive anvil and hammer. These were not subtle symbols, they were bold, public advertisements of what a place or a group of people did, and what they valued most. This was heraldry for the common man, a way for butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers to declare their essential role in the fabric of society, building a visual identity every bit as strong as that of any knight. Simultaneously, the Church, that other great pillar of medieval power, fully embraced the heraldic system. Bishops, cardinals, and even humble abbeys commissioned their own coats of arms. Their shields became canvases for a different kind of power, adorned not with lions and swords, but with croziers, the shepherd's staff symbolizing their duty to their flock, and mitres, the tall headdress denoting their office. The papal arms, with their iconic crossed keys of St. Peter, are perhaps the most famous example, representing the spiritual authority to bind and loose on earth and in heaven. This ecclesiastical adoption was a masterstroke. It allowed the Church to communicate its divine mission and hierarchical structure within the same visual framework used by secular lords, blending spiritual and temporal authority into a single, powerful image. Even the great universities, the centers of learning, created arms that spoke of their intellectual pursuits, often featuring open books, wise owls, or the lamps of enlightenment. This widespread adoption reveals heraldry's true genius. It was not a closed system for the nobility alone, but a flexible and universally understood language. From the merchants' guild hall to the bishop's cathedral, from the bustling town square to the quiet university library, this code of symbols became the fundamental grammar of medieval public life, proving that the need for a clear and respected identity was a force that transcended social class. This silent language of symbols demanded its own formal grammar, a precise code that could be spoken aloud to perfectly reconstruct a coat of arms anywhere in the world. Heralds called this the Science of Blazon, a technical language born from Norman French. Its purpose was absolute clarity, to describe a heraldic achievement with such meticulous detail that any artist, anywhere, could draw it exactly as intended without ever having seen the original. The rules of Blazon are as strict as a mathematical formula. The description always begins with the field, the background of the shield. It then moves to the principal ordinary charges, the geometric shapes like fesses or pails, and finally to the other charges, detailing their type, position, color, and their precise attitude or posture. Every single element is named in a specific, unchangeable order. Consider the royal arms of England. To our eyes, it is a shield of red with 3 gold lions walking in a column. But in the language of Blazon, it is defined with perfect economy as Gules, 3 lions passant guardant in pale or. This single, compact sentence tells an artist everything they need to know. The field is Gules red. The main charges are 3 lions. Their attitude is passant guardant, meaning they are walking and facing the viewer. Their arrangement is in pale, lined up vertically. And their tincture is or gold. There is no room for artistic interpretation or error. Learning to read Blazon is like learning to read sheet music. The notes on a staff are not the music itself, but they contain all the information needed to recreate the symphony in your mind. A written Blazon is not the visual emblem, but it holds the complete blueprint from which the vivid image of a family's pride can be rebuilt from scratch. This formal, international language was the invisible glue that bound the entire heraldic system together, ensuring that a knight's identity remained consistent and recognizable from the tournament fields of France to the castles of the Holy Roman Empire. This intricate language of symbols required a legal system to prevent it from descending into meaningless chaos. The right to display a coat of arms was never a matter of personal choice. It was a regulated privilege, a form of intellectual property granted and protected by a sovereign authority. Think of it not as picking a logo, but as receiving a unique legal name in a visual form. In England, this authority was vested in the Kings of Arms at the College of Arms, a body that still operates from its London headquarters to this day. North of the border, the court of the Lord Lion in Scotland holds the same ancient power, its authority rooted in the Scottish throne. These were not dusty archives, they were active courts of law for visual identity. The heralds who served there acted as judges and registrars, maintaining vast official rolls that recorded every legitimate grant of arms. Their role was to ensure that each design was unique, properly documented, and legally defensible. A grant of arms was a formal document, often a beautiful illuminated manuscript, that conferred a specific protected identity to a person, a corporation, or even a town. This was a serious matter. Unauthorized use of another family's arms, an act known as usurpation, was not a minor social faux pas. It was a punishable offense that could lead to heavy fines and public humiliation, a direct challenge to the social order itself. Similar heraldic authorities or strong traditions existed across Europe, from the royal courts of France to the city-states of Italy, all understanding that for this symbolic language to hold power, it needed the unwavering force of law behind it. This rigorous framework of control is what transformed heraldry from a collection of pretty pictures into a formal, stable system of law and identity, where every lion, every stripe, and every color was a legally binding statement of who you were. The roar of cannon fire signaled the end of an era. With the rise of reliable gunpowder weapons on the battlefield, the fully armored knight became a slow and expensive target, a relic of a bygone form of combat. As plate armor was relegated to parade grounds and portraits, the very foundation of heraldry crumbled. The shield, its original canvas, was no longer a standard piece of military equipment. What was once a vital system of identification in the chaos of war gradually lost its practical reason for being. Without the life or death need for instant recognition, heraldry began a long transformation from a living language to a ceremonial keepsake. It became an antiquarian pursuit, a beautiful and complex tradition cherished for its connection to the past, but increasingly detached from the present. This drift from function to decoration is the very root of the great misunderstanding we face today. We now look at these emblems through a modern lens, and our interpretations often miss the mark completely. A common assumption is that a coat of arms acts as a literal family job description. If your last name is Fletcher, you might expect to find arrows on your supposed family crest, or if you are a smith, you would look for a hammer and anvil. In the vast majority of cases, this is a fascinating historical misconception. Arms were granted based on a family's identity, their achievements, and their allegiances, not the etymology of their surname. A man named Baker might have been granted a lion for his courage in battle, not a loaf of bread for his profession. The true, complex rules of the system were slowly forgotten, the nuanced language of tinctures and attitudes fading into obscurity. What remained were the striking images, stripped of their context and reduced to little more than decorative logos for everything from pub signs to corporate letterheads. This profound disconnect, this gap between the original rich narrative and its modern, simplified shell, is precisely what makes the lost meaning of heraldry such a compelling mystery. The journey of these symbols, from practical battlefield identifiers to often misunderstood relics, is a poignant story of how the purpose of an object can be utterly transformed by time. You might think heraldry is a dead language, but its influence is everywhere in the modern world. Look at the flags of nations. The bold stripes and simple, powerful emblems are pure heraldry in their design philosophy, meant to be recognized instantly from a distance, just like a knight's shield. The double-headed eagle gazing east and west on the Russian coat of arms is a direct descendant of a Byzantine imperial symbol, a medieval statement of sovereignty that lives on today. And the lion and the unicorn supporting the royal arms of the United Kingdom are not just charming mascots. They are official supporters, a heraldic honor granted centuries ago, still performing their duty on official documents and government buildings. This is not a revival, it is an unbroken tradition. This visual language also roars on the sports field. Teams named the Lions, the Panthers, or the Eagles are unconsciously channeling the very same martial pride that a knight felt when his banner, emblazoned with a fierce beast, fluttered above the fray. They have chosen these symbols for the same inherent qualities of strength, courage, and ferocity that medieval families sought to project. Even the corporate world speaks this ancient tongue. The principles of creating a unique, memorable, and legally protected logo are a direct secular evolution of the heraldic impulse. A company's logo is its coat of arms, a symbol of its reputation and lineage in the marketplace, designed for instant recognition in a crowded field of competitors, much like a lord needed to spot his vassals on a chaotic battlefield. The next time you see a university seal with its Latin motto and symbolic shield, or the distinctive insignia on a military uniform, you are seeing the enduring grammar of heraldry. It connects our modern visual culture directly to the medieval past, proving that the human need for a symbolic identity is in fact timeless. A simple red shield emblazoned with 3 golden lions offers a perfect lesson in heraldic storytelling. This is the enduring emblem of the Plantagenet kings, a visual declaration of power born from a pivotal union. The blazon reads Gules, 3 lions passant guardant in pale or. But what does this truly tell us? The 3 lions are far more than a repeating motif. They are a direct representation of a political and geographical merger that reshaped medieval Europe. Historians widely interpret them as the fusion of 2 great inheritances. 2 lions are thought to represent the Norman dynasty of William the Conqueror, while the 3rd lion was added by Henry II to symbolize his own Angevin heritage from the House of Anjou. This was not a random act of decoration. It was a deliberate act of visual politics, stitching together the conqueror's legacy with the vast continental holdings Henry controlled through his father. Every detail of their posture reinforces this message of consolidated authority. The lions are not rampant and aggressive, but passant guardant, walking calmly while facing the observer directly. This specific attitude projects an image of watchful, sovereign dignity. It is the pose of a ruler who is permanently vigilant, whose power is so firmly established that he does not need to snarl or rear up to prove it. He simply is. This single, potent image thus encapsulates a complex historical reality. It maps the geography of a cross-channel empire, charts the genealogy of a new royal line, and broadcasts the ambition of a dynasty that saw itself as the unshakable master of its domains. The fact that these 3 lions remain a symbol of England centuries later is a testament to the sheer power of this heraldic statement, a story of union and authority so effectively told that it became permanently woven into a nation's identity. That double-headed eagle gazing east and west with a single, powerful body is one of history's most enduring imperial images. Its adoption by the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund in the 14th century was far more than an aesthetic update. It was a calculated act of political theater, a heraldic declaration of universal authority. For centuries, the empire had used a single-headed eagle, a strong but straightforward symbol. The shift to 2 heads transformed the emblem into a complex argument. One head looked toward Rome, the ancient seat of Western power, while the other faced Constantinople, the capital of the fallen Eastern Roman Empire. This was a bold claim of dual inheritance, positioning the Holy Roman Emperor as the sole legitimate successor to the entire classical Roman world. The symbol also articulated the emperor's 2 primary roles, his secular power over princes and kingdoms, and his spiritual authority as the defender of Christendom. The color scheme reinforced this message of supreme majesty. The eagle was sable, black, a color heralds associated with constancy and determination, and it was placed on a field of ore, gold, the metal of generosity and ultimate nobility. Together, they projected an image of unwavering, majestic power. The resonance of this symbol was so immense that it transcended its original context. The Russian Tsars and the Austrian Habsburgs later adopted their own versions of the double-headed eagle, explicitly weaving their own legitimacy into this grand narrative of Roman succession. In this single, potent charge, we see heraldry operating at its most ambitious level. It was no longer just a family story, but a tool for crafting imperial ideology, a visual language capable of projecting claims of sovereignty and divine right across an entire continent. The same digital tools that connect us today are now breathing new life into these ancient symbols. High-resolution scanners are performing a kind of modern miracle, capturing every faded ink stroke and parchment crease from fragile medieval armorials. These priceless manuscripts, once accessible only to a handful of scholars in climate-controlled archives, are now being uploaded to online libraries for the entire world to explore. A historian in Tokyo can now study the same roll of arms as a student in Toronto, all without risking the degradation of the original document. This global access is only the beginning. Powerful new databases are being constructed, capable of cross-referencing hundreds of thousands of individual coats of arms in seconds. They can track the migration of a specific symbol, like a particular type of star or a unique lion posture, across different regions and centuries, revealing connections between families that were invisible to generations of researchers. This is more than simple digitization. It is a fundamental shift in our ability to see the big picture of heraldic history. For genealogists, both amateur and professional, specialized software now allows for the reconstruction of lost or forgotten arms. By inputting the precise language of a blazon found in an old document, these programs can generate an accurate digital rendering of the shield, crest, and mantling. This means a family can visually reclaim a part of their heritage that existed only as a text description for generations. Online forums and social media groups have become the new communal halls for this pursuit, where enthusiasts from around the globe collaborate to decipher complex blazons and solve heraldic mysteries together. This collective effort is creating a living, breathing, and constantly expanding understanding of the silent language. The digital age is not simply preserving heraldry in a static archive. It is actively decoding it, ensuring that this vast visual language continues to speak its stories, now with a clarity and reach its original bearers could never have envisioned. Yet for all its intricate rules, heraldry is shrouded in modern myths that twist its true purpose. Perhaps the most persistent misconception is that these symbols served as a literal personality test for the knight who bore them. While the tinctures and charges held deep aspirational meaning, they were not a direct report card on the man's character. A lord who chose a red shield with a golden lion was not necessarily declaring himself a generous warrior in that moment. He was far more likely projecting an image of the martial strength and nobility he claimed for his entire lineage, an ideal to be lived up to by his descendants. The shield spoke of family identity, not individual psychology. Another widespread fiction is the belief that a coat of arms belongs to everyone who shares a surname. This is the commercial trap that has ensnared many a hopeful family historian. In the true legal practice of heraldry, arms are granted to a specific individual and passed down only to their direct, legitimate descendants. Your family name might be Howard, but that does not automatically grant you the right to the famous lion and lioness on the shield of the Dukes of Norfolk. That right belongs solely to the senior line of that specific noble house. Countless other Howard families, unrelated by blood, would have had to earn their own completely distinct arms. Then there is the dramatic myth of the bar sinister, often portrayed in novels as a universal and shameful stain of illegitimacy. The reality is far less theatrical and more complex. While heralds did use specific marks known as brisures to differentiate the arms of illegitimate children, these marks were not standardized. A bendlet sinister, a thin diagonal band, was one possibility, but so was a border of a different color, or even a completely new, invented symbol. The system was about creating a clear legal distinction for inheritance, not about branding a person with a single, infamous stripe. Peeling away these romantic layers of fiction is not about diminishing heraldry's romance. It is about restoring its true power as a sophisticated, legal language of identity, one that is far more fascinating in its historical reality than it ever could be in popular myth. A knight's shield was far more than a decorated piece of wood. It was a portable self, a complete philosophical statement about a person's place in the universe. In an era before passports, family photographs, or digital profiles, identity was not something held internally. It was performed, enacted, and displayed for all to see. Your very existence was validated by the symbols you carried and the recognition they received from others. A coat of arms was this validation made permanent. It wove together threads of bloodline, social standing, and personal accomplishment into a single, unchangeable image. This emblem did not just say who you were. It declared where you stood in a grand hierarchy that stretched from the local lord in his castle all the way up to God in heaven. The symbols chosen connected the bearer to this divine order. A star on a shield was not merely a pretty shape. It was a deliberate alignment with the celestial spheres above, a claim that the family's honor was as constant and ordered as the heavens themselves. This external, symbolic construction of the self stands in stark contrast to our modern world. We often think of identity as something deeply personal and internal, a private sense of self that we then express. For the medieval noble, identity was the expression. The public symbol was the reality. To study heraldry, then, is to do more than memorize the meaning of lions and colors. It is to encounter a completely different way of being human. It challenges us to look at the symbols we use today to tell our own stories. What logos, what flags, what digital avatars do we choose to represent our own place in the world? The silent language of the shield holds up a mirror, asking us how we choose to be seen and what our own symbols say about the society we have built. Our journey ends where it began, with a silent image that now speaks volumes. What began as a desperate need for identity in the chaos of combat grew into one of history's most intricate and personal languages. We have walked from the birth of a painted shield to the strict court of the heralds, from the grammar of tinctures to the poetry of posture. Every lion, every stripe of color, every tattered edge of mantling was a deliberate word in a story of lineage, alliance, and ambition. This was never mere decoration. It was a visual contract, a binding agreement between the glory of the past, the authority of the present, and the hopes for a dynasty's future. The age of functional heraldry may have faded with the last clang of tournament armor, but its legacy is woven into the fabric of our modern world, from the flags of nations to the logos that define our communities. So the next time your eye catches a coat of arms on an old building, in a film, or even on a simple sign, pause for a moment, look closer at the shapes and the creatures. You now hold the key to a forgotten language, ready to unlock the stories etched in color and metal. I would love to hear about the heraldic mysteries you have discovered. Share your own findings and stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the hidden meanings of the past, subscribe for more explorations that bring history